The highway was nearly empty, stretching endlessly across the burning afternoon heat. Officer Grant had pulled over a rusty old van for a routine traffic stop. Nothing unusual, nothing alarming. But Rex, his canine partner, refused to move. The German shepherd's ears shot up, his muscles tightened, and a low growl rumbled deep in his chest. Grant frowned. Rex never reacted like this, unless something was terribly wrong. Then something flickered in the back window. A small hand, a terrified face, and a shaky cardboard sign pressed against the glass. Kidnapped. Help. Before Grant could even react, Rex made a decision that would change everything, one that shocked every officer who later heard the story. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The sun hung low over the endless stretch of highway, painting the dry fields in a warm golden haze. Officer Grant adjusted his sunglasses as he cruised down the quiet road with Rex resting alertly in the back seat. It had been a slow afternoon, too slow. Out here, miles from the nearest town, even the wind felt lonely. Then Grant saw it, a battered blue van, rust crawling across its sides like old scars, drifting slightly over the white line. Not enough for an emergency stop, but enough for suspicion. Grant flicked on his lights. The van hesitated, then rolled to a shaky stop along the gravel shoulder. Rex's head instantly lifted. Grant glanced at the rearview mirror. The dog's ears were pinned forward, his posture stiff, eyes trained on the van with an unsettling intensity. "Easy, boy," Grant murmured, though unease prickled down his spine. Rex was calm during most stops, almost bored, but not now. Grant stepped out of the patrol car, the heat slamming against him. The open road was silent except for the ticking of engines and the distant buzz of power lines. He approached the driver's window. A middle-aged man sat behind the wheel, hands tight on the steering wheel, jaw clenched. "Afternoon," Grant said evenly. "Everything all right?" "You were drifting a little." The man nodded too quickly. Yeah, officer. Just tired." "Long drive?" His voice trembled. Grant noticed sweat beading at the man's temples, even though the air wasn't that hot. Something felt wrong, off balance, like the moment before a storm breaks. Behind him, Rex let out a sharp bark. Grant turned. The dog wasn't looking at the driver. He was staring at the back of the van, eyes locked, body rigid, muscles coiled like a spring. Grant frowned. "What is it, Rex?" Another bark, louder, urgent. Grant's pulse quickened. Rex never signaled without reason. And though he couldn't see it yet, hidden behind the tinted glass of the van's rear window, a terrified little girl was silently begging to be found. Rex's barking didn't fade, it sharpened, each bark cutting through the quiet highway like a warning siren only he could understand. Officer Grant took a slow step back, eyes narrowing as he looked toward the rear of the rusty van. The driver stiffened. His knuckles whitened around the steering wheel. "Sir," Grant said calmly, "stay right where you are." The man swallowed hard. "Officer, I told you, I'm just tired." But Rex's instincts had already shredded that lie. Grant moved toward the back of the vehicle, boots crunching over gravel. Rex pressed against the window of the patrol car, barking wildly now, tail stiff, fur raised along his shoulders in a way Grant had rarely seen. His partner wasn't just alert, he was desperate. Grant reached the far side of the van. And then he saw it. A small face pail, trembling pressed against the inside of the rear window. A little girl, no older than 10, her eyes red and swollen from crying. She clutched a torn cardboard sign in shaky hands. Grant froze as the words seared into his vision. Kidnapped help. Time slowed. Grant's heartbeat slammed in his ears. The girl looked directly at him, pleading silently, tears catching the sunlight. She lifted her hand just a little, a fragile gesture that said everything. Don't let him see. Please save me. Grant forced his expression to stay neutral. The kidnapper couldn't suspect that Grant had seen anything yet. He stepped casually to the side, pretending to survey the van's tires. But Rex had no intention of pretending. The German Shepherd exploded into frantic growls, throwing his body against the patrol car door, desperate to reach the girl. Grant had seen Rex alert on drugs, explosives, missing persons, but never like this. This was raw urgency, pure instinct. He walked slowly back toward the driver's window, every step careful, controlled. The man's eyes darted nervously between Grant and the barking K9. "Everything okay, officer?" he asked, voice strained. Grant gave a tight smile. "Actually," he said quietly, "I'm going to need you to step out of the vehicle." The man's eyes flashed with something dark. Grant didn't miss it. Neither did Rex. And in that moment, Grant knew this wasn't a routine stop anymore. This was a rescue, and time was running out. Grant's hand hovered near his holster as he watched, the driver's trembling fingers inch away from the steering wheel. The man's eyes flicked toward the rear of the van, just for a fraction of a second, but it was enough. He knew Grant had seen something. The lie he'd been hiding behind was crumbling fast. "Sir," Grant repeated, voice steady. "Step out of the vehicle, slowly." The man didn't move. Rex, now free, thanks to the quick press of a remote door, release shot out of the patrol car like a bolt of lightning. Gravel sprayed beneath his paws as he sprinted toward Grant, placing himself between the officer and the van with an explosive, guttural snarl that vibrated through the air. "Easy." "Rex," Grant murmured, but his partner wasn't hearing him. This wasn't aggression. This was protection. Purpose. The dog had chosen his mission. The driver flinched back in his seat. "Call off your dog," he shouted, panic lacing every syllable. Rex lunged closer, lips curled back, teeth bared, not attacking, but blocking, warning, forcing the man to stay put. Grant stepped forward, heart pounding. He could feel the situation teetering on the edge of chaos. "Hands where I can see them," Grant ordered, but the driver's gaze darted wildly toward the gear shift. "Don't," Grant warned. Too late. The man lunged for the shifter. Rex moved first. The German Shepherd leapt, slamming his paws against the driver's door with such force the entire van rocked sideways. The driver jerked back instinctively, hitting his head on the window with a dull thud. The gear shift slipped from his grip. Grant seized the opportunity, yanking the door open. "Out now!" Rex stayed inches away, growling, preventing even the slightest attempt at escape. Grant handcuffed the man in seconds, pushing him against the side of the van before he could recover. "You don't understand," the kidnapper spat, breath ragged. "You're making a mistake." Grant tightened the cuffs. "No," he said coldly, "I'm correcting one." Behind him, Rex rushed toward the back of the van, pressing his nose against the window where the frightened girl was still waiting, hope finally returning to her eyes. Rex had taken charge. And because of him, the rescue had truly begun. Grant barely had time to secure the kidnapper beside the patrol car when Rex barked sharply, an urgent, warning sound that made Grant's stomach knot. The girl inside the van had flinched, pressing herself against the opposite wall. Something was happening. Something fast. Grant turned just in time to see the kidnapper twist violently in his grip. In a split second, the man shoved his shoulder hard into Grant's chest, knocking him off balance. The officer stumbled backward, boots scraping against the asphalt. The kidnapper spun and bolted, hands still cuffed, sprinting down the empty stretch of highway like a cornered animal desperate for one last chance. "Stop!" Grant shouted, pushing himself up, but the man didn't stop. Rex was already moving. The German Shepherd launched forward with explosive force, muscles coiled, paws pounding mercilessly against the road. Dust kicked up behind him as he closed the distance with terrifying speed. Grant sprinted after them, adrenaline surging. But Rex was a blur faster, focused, unstoppable. The kidnapper looked over his shoulder, saw Rex charging toward him, and panicked completely. He veered off the pavement and into the dry field, hoping the uneven terrain would slow the dog. It didn't. Rex thundered across the ground, bounding through tall yellow grass. The man tripped, stumbled, regained his footing, but Rex was only seconds away now. Grant watched, breath heavy, knowing exactly what his partner was about to do. Rex leapt, not to maul, not to bite, but to bring him down safely, K9 style. The dog slammed his weight into the man's legs, sweeping him off his feet. The kidnapper crashed into the dirt with a strangled cry, rolling once before Rex planted himself firmly on top of him, teeth inches from his arm. Growling deep and controlled, the man froze. Grant approached, panting, weapon drawn just in case. "It's over," he said, voice firm. "Don't move." Rex stepped back only when Grant reclaimed control, securing the kidnapper with a second set of restraints, but Rex didn't relax. He spun immediately toward the van, barking in frantic bursts. Grant followed his gaze, and the dread returned, because Rex wasn't warning about the kidnapper anymore. He was signaling something else. Something still inside the van. Something much worse. Grant rushed back toward the van, his breath tight in his chest. Rex was already there, paws pressed against the rear door, barking in frantic, uneven bursts. The little girl inside recoiled at first, then, realizing Rex wasn't a threat, she slowly moved closer, her trembling fingers rising to the window. "It's okay," Grant said gently, trying to keep his voice steady. "You're safe now." The girl's wide, frightened eyes locked onto his. She shook her head violently. "Safe? Not yet." Grant carefully opened the door. The hinges groaned, and the girl flinched as if expecting something or someone to strike her. She looked no older than 10. Her hair was tangled, her cheeks streaked with dirt, and her small hands shook uncontrollably. Rex stepped forward, lowering his head, sniffing her gently. She reached for him, touching his fur like she was touching hope itself. Grant knelt beside her. "What's your name?" Her lips quivered. Layla, can you tell me what happened?" She swallowed hard, eyes darting to the empty fields, as if expecting the kidnapper to return at any moment. He "He took me," she whispered, "from the bus stop. I was waiting for my mom to pick me up. But she was late." Her voice cracked. "He said he was a friend. He said she sent him." Grant clenched his jaw. Classic predator tactic. Lila hugged her knees tightly. "I didn't believe him at first, but he grabbed me. He tied my hands. He said if I screamed, he'd—" She stopped, choking on her words. Rex nudged her arm softly, as if urging her to breathe. Grant placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You're safe now, Lila, I promise." But Lila shook her head again, more insistently. No, I knew you were coming. I knew someone would." She pointed at Rex. "When I saw your dog, I remembered what my teacher said. She told us dogs can understand signals. So I made a sign." Her trembling fingers touched a torn cardboard piece resting beside her. "I thought, if I could show him, maybe he'd tell you." Grant's chest tightened. This little girl had risked everything on a desperate hope, and Rex had understood. But then Lila's face went pale. She stared toward the front of the van, voice dropping to a terrified whisper. "He wasn't taking me home," she said. "He said there was someone else waiting." Grant froze. Rex's head snapped toward the van's interior, growling again. There was more to this nightmare. Much more. Grant's pulse quickened as Lila's trembling words echoed in his mind. There was someone else waiting. Before he could ask more, Rex suddenly stiffened. The German shepherd lowered his head, nose twitching rapidly, sniffing the stale air inside the van. His posture shifted from protective to alarmed, every muscle tightening with sharp, focused purpose. Grant recognized that body language instantly. Rex wasn't curious. He was detecting something dangerous. "Rex." "What is it, boy?" Grant whispered. The dog stepped deeper into the van, ignoring the dirt and torn upholstery. He sniffed the floor, then jerked his head toward the front seats. A low, uneasy growl rolled from his chest, deeper than before. Lila shrank back, gripping Grant's sleeve. "He said no one ever finds his hiding place," she whispered, tears forming again. "He said I wouldn't be the first girl there." Grant's stomach twisted into a cold knot. Rex's growl intensified. He planted his paws near a pile of old blankets and trash, barking sharply 3 quick bursts. A signal Grant had been trained to recognize. Something or someone was there. Grant gently pulled Lila out of the van and set her beside the patrol car. "Stay right here, sweetheart. Don't move." Her small voice quivered. "Please be careful." Grant nodded, then reached for the flashlight clipped to his belt. He swept the beam across the cramped van floor. Dust floated like tiny ghosts in the narrow light. Rex clawed at the pile of blankets, teeth gripping the corner. He tugged hard. The blanket slid back. Grant's breath caught. At first, he saw nothing but darkness. Then the beam caught something pale. A foot, small, motionless. "Dear God," Grant murmured. He dropped to one knee and pulled the rest of the blanket away. Curled between the seats, half hidden beneath a stained tarp, was another little girl, still unconscious, wrists bound with rope. Her breathing was faint, shallow, barely there. Rex whined and nudged her gently, as if begging her to wake up. Grant pressed 2 fingers to her neck. A weak pulse fluttered beneath his touch. "She's alive," he breathed. Relief washed through him, fragile but real. "She's alive, Rex." Rex barked loudly, triumphantly calling for help. Grant radioed urgently for backup and medical support. His voice shook, but not from fear, from the enormity of what they had just uncovered. This wasn't one kidnapping. This was a predator's hunting trail. And thanks to Rex, it wasn't going any further. The second girl didn't move, not even when Grant gently lifted her into his arms. Her skin felt cold, her small frame frighteningly limp. Rex paced beside him, whining urgently, nudging Grant's leg as if reminding him that time was slipping away. The highway felt suddenly too quiet, too empty, like the world itself was holding its breath. Lila stood near the patrol car, hands pressed over her mouth, eyes wide with terror. Is she alive?" she whispered. Grant nodded, though the reassurance wavered in his own voice. "Yes, but she needs help fast." He laid the unconscious girl on the grass, checking her pulse again, still there, but weak. Rope burns marked her wrists. Bruises darkened her arms. She looked even younger than Lila. Rex found her. Grant said softly, mostly to himself. "You saved her, boy." Rex lowered his head beside the girl's face, sniffing gently, whining at her stillness. Then he looked up, eyes sharp, urging Grant to hurry, urging action. The radio crackled. "Backup en route. Ada, 8 minutes." 8 minutes felt like an eternity. Grant grabbed his first aid kit, quickly cutting away the rope from the girl's wrists. Lila knelt timidly beside her, brushing a strand of hair from the unconscious girl's forehead. "I heard him talking about her," Lila whispered. "He said she didn't listen. He said he had to make her quiet." Her voice broke. "I thought she was already dead." Grant swallowed hard, anger burning behind his ribs. "You were brave, Lila. You helped save her." Rex's ears suddenly flicked, head snapping toward the distant road. A low growl rumbled in his throat, not of fear, but alertness. Grant followed Rex's gaze. A second vehicle, not police, had pulled onto the far edge of the highway. A black pickup. Doors closed. Windows tinted. Engine still running. Lila's breath hitched. That's the truck he said would come if I tried to escape." Grant's blood turned to ice. He rose quickly, positioning himself between the girls and the truck. Rex stepped forward, stance rigid, eyes locked. Tail low, a silent promise that anyone approaching would meet the full force of a trained K9. For a moment, the truck didn't move, then it did. The engine revved, tires crunching the gravel as it began creeping forward slowly, deliberately. As if assessing the unfolding scene, this wasn't just a rescue anymore. This was a threat returning to finish what the kidnapper started, and Rex was ready to defend them all. The black pickup crept closer, rumbling like a predator circling wounded prey. Grant positioned himself in front of the two girls, hand on his weapon, heart pounding relentlessly. Rex stood ahead of him, body low, muscles tight, every instinct screaming danger. The pickup suddenly accelerated. "Stay back," Grant shouted, raising his free hand. "Police!" The truck didn't slow. Instead, the driver jerked the wheel, swerving sharply away from Grant and toward the open field, speeding past them with a roar. Dust exploded behind the vehicle like a storm cloud. Grant barely glimpsed the driver, a shadowy figure wearing a cap pulled low. This wasn't a coincidence. This man wasn't leaving. He was circling back. Rex barked, deep and furious, lunging forward until Grant held up a quick hand. Rex waited. But the dog couldn't wait. The truck fishtailed in the field, spinning to face the highway again. The driver slammed the gas, accelerating straight toward the unconscious girl lying in the grass. Grant's blood ran cold. "No, Rex, go!" The order launched the dog like a missile. Rex tore across the field, his stride powerful and explosive. Grass bent beneath him as he sprinted directly toward the oncoming truck. The driver must not have expected resistance, especially not from a canine. He jerked the wheel left, trying to avoid Rex and still reach the girl, but Rex was faster, with a leap fueled by pure adrenaline. The dog collided with the truck's front tire area, forcing the driver to swerve violently. The vehicle skidded sideways, wheels carving trenches into the soil. The driver lost control entirely. The truck spun, then crashed into a ditch with a metal twisting crunch. Grant ran forward, calling out, "Rex! Rex!" His heart hammered until he saw the dog scramble to his feet, shaken but unhurt. Rex shook off dust and bolted toward the driver's side door before Grant even reached the truck. The driver kicked the door open. Stumbling out, trying to run. Rex was already airborne. He launched, clamping his jaws onto the man's forearm, not tearing, but gripping with trained precision. The man screamed, falling backward into the grass as Rex pinned him. Growling fiercely, eyes blazing with determination. Grant arrived seconds later, cuffing the struggling man. "You're done," he said coldly. "It's over." Rex finally released, stepping back, chest heaving. Behind them. The girls were safe, because Rex had risked everything to stop the final threat. The wail of approaching sirens finally broke the tense silence that clung to the highway. Police cruisers and an ambulance pulled up in a blur of flashing red and blue lights. Paramedics rushed toward the unconscious girl, carefully lifting her onto a stretcher while Lila hovered anxiously beside Grant. "She's going to be okay," one medic said reassuringly as they checked her vitals. "Weak but stable. You found her just in time." Lila let out a shaky breath she'd been holding for what felt like days. Rex nudged her hand, and she dropped to her knees, throwing her arms around the dog's neck. "You saved us," she whispered into his fur. "I knew someone would come. I knew you would see me." Grant felt his chest tighten. This brave little girl had trusted a dog more than any adult, and she had been right. Moments later, a pair of frantic parents sprinted toward them. Lila's mother stumbled as she ran, tears streaking hot down her cheeks. "Lila!" she cried. Lila turned, and the world seemed to stop. "Mom!" She flew into her mother's arms, clinging to her as sobs shook her small body. Her father wrapped them both tightly, his shoulders trembling in relief. Grant stepped back to give them space, swallowing the lump forming in his throat. Rex sat beside him, watching the reunion with gentle eyes. Lila's mother looked up at Grant, overwhelmed. How did you find her?" "We were so scared. They said there were no leads." Grant looked down at Rex. "We didn't find her," he said softly. "He did." Rex's ears perked as Lila's parents knelt to stroke him, gratitude spilling from their expressions. "Thank you," the father whispered. "You saved our little girl." Behind them, officers secured both kidnappers, now fully in custody. Medics prepared to transport the unconscious girl to the hospital, her fate forever changed because a German shepherd refused to ignore a silent signal. The truth was undeniable. This rescue wasn't luck. It was instinct, courage, and the unbreakable bond between a canine and his mission. Night settled softly over the hospital parking lot, the flashing emergency lights fading into a calm glow. Grant sat on the bench outside, Rex resting faithfully at his feet. The chaos of the day had finally quieted, but the weight of everything that happened still hung thick in the air. The hospital doors opened. Lila, wrapped in a warm blanket, walked out with her parents beside her. She looked tired, but safe, finally safe. When she spotted Rex, her face brightened for the first time. She rushed over and knelt in front of him. Rex leaned forward, gently pressing his forehead against hers, as if reassuring her that it was truly over. Grant smiled softly. "How are you feeling, Lila?" She glanced up, eyes shining. "Better." Because of him. She placed a small hand on Rex's chest. "I need to tell you something," she whispered. Grant leaned closer. Lila took a shaky breath. "When he took me, I was so scared. But then I remembered something my teacher said. She told us that dogs, especially heroes like him, don't need words. They can understand us even when no one else does." Her voice wavered, but she continued bravely. "So when I saw Rex today, I prayed he would see me. And he did." Tears filled her eyes. "I thought adults wouldn't notice. But your dog saved my life." Grant felt his throat tighten. Lila gently wrapped her arms around Rex's neck. "Tell him, he's my angel." Rex closed his eyes and leaned into the embrace, his tail thumping softly against the ground. Grant placed his hand on Rex's back, pride warming his chest. "He knows," Grant said quietly. "He definitely knows." The case was closed. The girls were safe, and Rex had become a hero forever.